Israel has carried out a wave of strikes against at least dozens of targets in Iran, including nuclear facilities, ballistic missile sites, and some of the country's top military and nuclear officials. The key question is, why now? Well, first, from Iran's perspective. Iran is arguably at its weakest point in decades. Some of its strongest assets in the region, for example, its proxy, Hezbollah, has been decimated, and that has left Iran without the foothold that it has traditionally held in the region. In addition, its economy has now been under punishing sanctions for years, and that has left it weaker and more isolated economically. From Israel's perspective, an Israeli official says they looked at now as the right time to act militarily and diplomatically, especially as the U.S. was watching what it saw as Israeli preparations for a strike. Israel says Iran was continuing to enrich uranium towards higher enriched uranium that would be capable of fueling a nuclear weapon. That, for Israel, was a red line, in addition to the thousands of ballistic missiles that have in the past been fired on Israel. The timing, of course, is also remarkable because the U.S. and Iran were about to go into a sixth round of nuclear negotiations to try to get to some sort of nuclear deal. Israel's strikes make that, in all likelihood, absolutely impossible. Hard to see a way forward there. In addition, this week, the International Atomic Energy Agency said Iran was in violation of its non-proliferation obligations. Iran responded angrily by saying it would launch a new enrichment facility with the latest in centrifuges. Given all of that, Israel felt it was the time to act, and it did so, crucially though, unilaterally, and that is a point the U.S. has made abundantly clear.
Let's take you straight to our breaking news that we're following at this hour. Israel says that it is expecting difficult hours ahead as Tehran promises to launch its retaliation for earlier Israeli strikes on Iran. The Israeli military is saying that Iran had fired more than 100 drones already. An Israeli military official saying that it has been able to shoot down some of them so far. And this coming hours after Israel said that it struck more than 100 targets related to Iran's nuclear program and went after top military leaders and scientists. Iran state TV says that the strikes killed the chief of staff of Iran's armed forces, along with the commander of the powerful Revolutionary Guard. Washington making it clear this morning that Israel has acted on its own. Meanwhile, Israel has announced a state of emergency in anticipation of Iran's retaliation. Many shoppers you see here rushing to stock up on food and the essentials to hunker down for the next few days. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel's strikes on Iran are not over. And he also said his country had no choice but to go on and attack.
Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program.
The video you're looking at here now shows smoke rising from the Natanz nuclear facility that Netanyahu just mentioned. An Israeli security source tells us that top Iranian military leaders were targeted in these strikes. Iranian state media says the head of the country's Revolutionary Guard has been killed. The question now is how and when Iran will respond. Israeli sources tell us that they are bracing for a retaliation, and Iran has done so before. Right now, the skies are clear over Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, but we are learning that some senior Israeli officials have been moved to secret locations. Back in Washington, sources say that President Trump is convening a cabinet-level meeting to focus on the U.S. response. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has confirmed quite clearly, quite publicly, that the U.S. had no involvement in these strikes.
Iran's retaliation is underway, according to Israel's military, with the launch of some 100 drones towards Israeli territory. Now, Israel itself has been bracing for this retaliation. A state of emergency has been declared. Schools have been closed. Workplaces have been closed. And citizens have been told to shelter as best they can. Now, we have also seen that in hospitals, some underground wards are being readied for use. The Israeli Health Ministry has declared that all non-urgent activities be cancelled, that personnel be moved and patients be moved to protected areas. And they have been put on the highest level of alert for hospitals across the country. Now, we also saw in the early hours of Friday that some residents of Tel Aviv were going to local supermarkets that were opened and trying to stock up on supplies.
We begin with breaking news out of Iran, whose supreme leader says Israel should now expect, quote, severe punishment for its ongoing strikes on his country. Hours ago, Israel said it had begun military strikes targeting Iran's nuclear facilities as well as missile sites and leadership. The statement said Israel went after dozens of targets related to its nuclear program and ballistic missiles. Iranian state media are now reporting that the top commander of the country's Revolutionary Guard, General Hossein Salami, was killed. Washington is making it clear that Israel acted on its own and that the U.S. was not involved. While in Israel itself, air raid sirens over Jerusalem, the country in a state of emergency amid fears that Iranian retaliation could come at any time. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the targets included Iran's main nuclear enrichment facility at Natanz. You see video of a burning site there. Prime Minister Netanyahu also says Iran made so much progress with its nuclear program that it became an existential threat to Israel.
We begin with a major breaking news story and a growing risk of open war in the Middle East. Israel has launched what it's calling preemptive strikes against Iran, targeting Iran's nuclear program and long-range missile capabilities. We still are learning the full scope of the damage. You can see this video from Iranian state TV. It is showing smoke and buildings on fire in the capital, Tehran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement shortly after the strikes, revealing what Israel targeted, and that is not just a one-day attack that we're dealing with.